I know your awakening is freaking you out. How do I know that? Well, for many, many years, I've been helping people with their spiritual awakenings. And one of the things I get asked more than anything is this normal? I'm feeling this way. I'm experiencing this thing. Is it normal? I'm freaking out. So if you've had recently or during your awakening anything such as rising of energy, lack of energy, feeling demotivated, sometimes seeing things out of the corner of your eye that don't exist, voices, visions, vibrations, hums, feeling that you're oneness, feeling that you are everything, feeling that you no longer exist, that the separate self has disappeared, feeling different to everyone around you, feeling like you've looked through the matrix. Any of these things are indications that you've gone through and are going through a spiritual awakening. It can be an extremely confusing, disorientating, and frankly, terrifying time. I'm here to tell you it's okay. Everything that is happening to you is supposed to happen, and everything that is happening to you is happening for a reason to itself. It's literally awakening up to itself. Now, for you, something may have triggered this. It may seem like there was something that caused this awakening to happen. Maybe it was a moment of trauma. Maybe it was a moment of boredom, or maybe it was a moment of frustration, or you saw through the illusion. You looked at life and thought, well, what's the point of this? Isn't there more to life than this? And this started to trigger your spiritual awakening. Now, for me, for the longest time, I was an entrepreneur, and I spent a lot of hours and a lot of years throwing all of my time into growing a business. And I got it to a certain level, and this was so-called, for many people, the pinnacle of success. And I felt nothing. It felt empty. It didn't fulfill me. And this was the model on which the whole of the world is built. If you get enough stuff, enough money, then you'll achieve happiness, and you'll get everything that you need, and that's it. And I saw through that and realized there must be something else. So that for me was one of the sparks for my awakening. For you, it may be different. But whatever you go through and whatever's happening to you is normal. It may not feel it at the time, and you certainly feel isolated during this time because many people are not open to these things. They're still kind of asleep, as it were, and they're not awakened or have not started to wake up. It gets to the time where you feel so alienated that you can't really speak to anybody about it. You can't sit down with your partner or friend and say, you know what, I don't actually feel like I'm a person now. I actually feel like I'm the universe experiencing a person. You can't sit down with your friend from high school and from many years ago and say, you know what, I actually think there is just oneness, and that there is no two things. This non-duality does not exist. People outside the spiritual realm will look at you like you are bat shizzle crazy, because to a certain extent, that's what's happening. You're literally losing the mind. You've seen something beyond mind. You've learned something, and you've got a knowing now that is beyond the mind. And this is why you're in this kind of free fall stage where the mind can't grasp it, because the knowledge that you now have and what you've experienced and seen and witnessed is not knowable by the mind. It's not graspable by the mind. It's on an entirely different dimension to time and space and thought. So it can't live in that dimension, but it doesn't stop the mind from trying to grab hold of it. So in this free fall stage, you're literally thrashing around. The mind is thrashing around, trying to grab onto something, trying to get some orientation back. And it's as if you've fallen into a well, and the mind is kind of reaching back to the opening of the well where you first fell into the old life, the old you, the old identity, the old habits, the old comfort zone. And it's thinking, can we get back there? Right? That's what the mind's trying to do. And it's also worried and fearful about what's coming down below. What are you going to hit? What are we free falling into here, says the mind? What's next? Like, this feels dangerous and unknown and uncertain and brand new to me. It's a world I don't recognize, and the mind can't recognize and can't assimilate this. It can't find its place in this world. But this well that you've fallen into does not have a bottom. It's a bottomless well. So the first sort of few days, weeks, or months, sometimes years, that you're in this free fall stage of having had some kind of awakening, it feels as if you're scrambling around and the mind is telling you, this is wrong, it doesn't feel right, I don't know what's going on. And it's trying to get orientation and it's worried about what it's going to hit at the bottom. But eventually a peace is established because it realizes there is nothing to hit. So in the first few weeks or months or years, you're kind of scrambling around, but eventually you just kind of relax because you realize it's a bottomless pit. There's no end to this free fall. A little bit like if you jump off something high or you jump off a tree, or if you've ever done one of those really steep slides, initially your stomach raises up and you get all these physical sensations and emotions of fear, adrenaline. But as the fall continues, everything kind of hits this equilibrium and your body no longer has a sensation of falling because it's equalized. And that's the same with these awakenings, with this spiritual journey, that eventually it unfolds to itself in a way that is no longer panic-filled. But initially, it can feel like you're losing your mind because you are taking a step away from that mind. You're recognizing as the observer that the mind is not you, that all these thoughts that pop up all the time, like this crazy bat object. I quite often talk to my students about the mind being like a bat. It'll flap around everywhere, seemingly random, and you don't control that. You don't control when the thoughts occur. You don't control where they go or what they're about. They just occur. You're the observer that's kind of watching them. So as you start to have these experiences, particularly in later life, if you're in your sort of 40s or 50s or 60s, it can be very disorientating and kind of change your whole world view and the model with which you viewed the world and which you moved in the world. Because it kind of makes you realize that actually you're not a separate thing moving in the world. You are all that there is, moving within itself, observing and interacting with itself. And in that sense, on an absolute level, there's literally nothing happening, because for something to happen, there need to be two distinct objects occurring to each other and an observer observing them. But at the absolute level, there is merely all that there is here, interacting with all that there is, observed by all that there is. So it's all that there is, all that there ising with all that there is. Once you see this, even on a partial level, how can that not completely destroy the world and the identity that you used to have? So it's perfectly normal. Now, another common question that I get asked is, I've got it, or I had it, but now I've lost it. I spoke to somebody just the other week and they said, I felt this deep sense of peace last year. I kind of glimpsed through the veil. I saw reality and I felt this love and this oneness. How do I get that back? I've lost it now. I feel frustrated now, and I get angry sometimes, and I feel like I've fallen out of that. You cannot ever fall out of it. Even when you weren't aware of it, you were still it. So be kind to yourself, be loving to yourself, be generous with yourself. You have always been this. Whether you realize it or not, whether you feel you've lost it, you cannot do something that takes you out of this oneness, that takes you out of source or all that there is. There is literally all that there is. It includes and contains everything. There is nothing outside of all that there is, and there is nothing separate to all that there is. You are all that there is. That is what you are, as is the screen, the tree, the car, the sky. They are all that there is. And you are all that there is. So regardless of your behavior or your reactions or your the way that you feel that things occur in your life, you cannot be separate to that. You're not suddenly kicked out of spirituality. Oh, you're not being spiritual now. You are always all that there is. You are always the oneness. You are always the source. So be loving to yourself. Be loving to yourself, and the self is the love. You're literally loving love itself. So because you're this oneness, because you're all that there is, there's nothing you can do that will take you away from that. Now, it's easier said than done, of course. I remember a stage that I went through for many, many months where I kind of glimpsed some of these things and experienced some of these things. But I would quite often feel I was flip-flopping back to like a non-realized state. I think, oh no, why am I getting angry at, the dogs or my dog, or why am I reacting in this way? And I would start passing judgment. Oh, that's a wrong way to think. That's an unspiritual thing to do. That's an unspiritual way to think. And of course, then you start passing judgment on the judgment. Oh, but now I'm getting lost in thought and so on and so forth. The ultimate lesson is really just allow everything to be as it is. Allow everything to be as it is. Now, this doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you roll over and somebody smacks you in the face and you're like, oh, I allow it. I allow that. You don't resist anything that happens. If somebody smacks you in the face and that results in an emotion building and a response, you allow that. You allow everything to be as it is. So if you see the mind passing judgment on something, or you feel anger rising, awakening is not about becoming saintly. It's not about becoming a better person or becoming this perfect person. That's a complete myth. It's literally about recognizing reality in all of its forms, with all of its sides, the bad sides, the downsides, the so-called good sides, the ugly sides, the anger, the jealousy, the frustration, along with the love, the light, the peace, and the oneness. And allowing all of it in with loving arms. Now, many people take this as an instruction and say, okay, I must allow everything to be as it is. I must allow everything to be as it is. And they start to go through life and try and filter everything. So am I fully allowing this to be as it is? This is already happening. Because what you are is not the person, and what you are is not the thoughts, and what you are is not the mind. What you are is the awareness in which all of this occurs. And the awareness accepts everything. When you're aware of anything, whether it's a loving experience, a negative emotion, a hurtful sensation, a beautiful sensation, a wonderful sound, a horrible scratching sound, whatever it is that goes in, the awareness in which all occurs has no judgment. The awareness literally accepts everything with loving arms, open arms. It's only the mind, which is not you. It is only the mind which passes judgment. It is only the mind which separates this experience is good equals this experience is bad, or this is something spiritual, this is something not spiritual. Awareness accepts it all, and awareness is what you are. So this is not an instruction. This is a description of what is already occurring. So the next time you see something, or you feel something rise up in you, or you say something, or your thought occurs to you, passing judgment is okay. Any negative thoughts are okay. Passing judgment on the judgment, judging the thoughts, or even judging the fact you're judging, oh, I can't believe there's judging going on. All of that is okay. So go easy on yourself. Show yourself love and compassion, because that loving awareness is your real, true nature.